I'm still crossing the desert.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still trying to find the cloud that the Lord has sent for me. And I'm trying to do my best to follow it regardless of where it's leading me.
In today's episode, we're going to talk to Johnny, a young man that had a tragic loss not too long ago, not even a year ago, and has been able to process this to something very positive and extremely inspiring. So welcome to Tea Talk. I know you're going to enjoy this episode. Johnny, I'm so glad you're here. We met not too long ago, but it was like a year and a half ago in one of the events that we did.
I believe it was Nasoka
Yeah.
Pines Ranch. We saw you. You were introduced to us, and we were so excited. I'm so glad we can finally collaborate together.
Yeah, no, this is great. And not only that, but I have seen you leading things and speaking at different events. And we had an event at your church. And I, like from far, I kept watching the things that you do. And I really love to see young people like you having leadership positions in the church. And you have the skill for leader. Oh, and you have the talent for music too. So
Thank you.
very excited to be here with you
Thank
today.
you. And again, this is something I've always wanted to do. I love speaking. I love sharing. So believe me, I'm 7 times more excited than you are right now. This is great.
That is good. That is good. That's very good. Well, let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Family, growing up, spiritual background. How was that?
So, for those who don't know me, my name is Johnny Mauricio Villamil. I am a first-generation Colombian American, living in the upstate region of South Carolina right now. For those, again, who don't know me, I am the son of a former pastor and the grandson of a former pastor.
Okay.
And the nephew of many pastors. So pastoral life has been something very present and prevalent in my life. I've always seen a wide variety of strategies when communicating, different areas of ministry, very unique areas of ministry as well, not just standing on the podium at church. So this is something I've grown up with, something that I choose to love, something that I'm very passionate about. And of course, when I'm not in church, I love, as you said, playing music, playing instruments is something that brings me a lot of peace and allows me to express my thoughts and my ideas. I'm also a big sports fan. If you know me, you know I'm very competitive. I always support the Colombian national football team whenever they play, especially against Brazil. I'd love to see Colombia do good against Brazil, even though we never do good against Brazil.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And I'm a big traveler today. Traveled up here to the Charlotte area, and hopefully I can do more traveling as well as ministry in the future.
That is awesome. So not only you were raised as a Christian, but you also have like pastors in your family, like leaders in your family. How did that affect you, like growing up, teen years? How was that, having all of those leaders around you? Was it positive, negative?
Well, I think the answer varies based on the short term and the long term.
Sure.
I think in the short term, being an adolescent at that time, it's the worst possible thing, right? You know, everyone's looking at you. Everyone's always finding any way to criticize you, and not just specifically you, not that it's personal, but as a way to attack the pastor, attack those leadership positions.
Got it.
You know? So of course, a lot of pressure being young, a lot of education, a lot of things that are a little above and beyond the standard adolescent in the church. But I think long term, it's something I'm eternally and will be eternally thankful for. Having the education necessary to guide my decisions and direct my life today, knowing principles and faith and these ideas that keep me strong and keep me faithful and keep me going in the direction that I feel that I need to be going. So short term, a little bit of a headache, but long term, peace,
younger,
for sure.
But then it changed because you said this is your passion now. This is what you love
exactly
doing. You have a profession that is not in the church, but you still serve so much, because I have seen the work that you do at the church. You want to talk a little bit about your profession?
Please, yes. So I decided to go into healthcare.
Okay.
And there's many reasons, but one of the most significant reasons I chose healthcare specifically was because historically, my family has a lot of presence in healthcare, and not the way that you would want.
Mm.
My mother had cancer
I'm
and a
sorry.
thyroid cancer. She survived, thank goodness. She's still here, strong with us. Um, all of my grandparents, their own unique types of cancer as well. Um, Aunts, cousins with health conditions. So I spent a lot of my youth and adolescence in healthcare. And in my time in healthcare, I saw lots of amazing things. I saw treatments, I saw conditions becoming better or cured. But something that always stood out to me was the lack of attention and importance to spiritual,
Mm.
mental, and emotional health. Lots of healthcare providers today, since it's mostly for profit, they just take the patient, fix the physical, and send them out the door. You know, there's not enough people addressing or giving consideration to the other areas of health. I saw that it sent off many alarms in me, and I knew it was immediately something I was called to go and do my part in.
So even though some people might say, "Oh, he didn't follow the footsteps of his family, becoming a pastor, all of that," but you saw a different way of doing ministry. So you do ministry through healthcare. I
Mhm.
love that. That is wonderful.
And the biggest thing is that it's just such an underserved area.
I agree.
It's not that being a pastor and working in that type of ministry is not important. My greatest respect to that ministry. It's probably the most difficult there is. But when I saw that there was just a strong need,
Mhm.
a very underserved area, I just had to.
And it's a time when the people are more vulnerable, more open to spiritual things because they're going through so much.
Mhm.
So it's a ministry that it's extremely needed.
Mhm.
Was there anybody that influenced you the most?
Well, I'd say in terms of leading up to my decision of going into healthcare, without a doubt, it was my mother's cancer.
Uh,
It was something that came out of nowhere, really. She was relatively asymptomatic for a long time. Then one day she was doing her normal exams, felt a small bump here in the throat, the thyroid area. She went to get it examined, and they immediately sent off all the alarms. They found the cancer. And I remember that the surgery itself and the treatment wasn't so bad, but it was seeing her in such a weak state,
mm,
such a fragile and delicate state, knowing that this is my mom and this is her life, and it is so vulnerable. It's
mhm.
something that is so fragile. That definitely something that's, stayed with me. And I definitely think that that moment, especially in my adolescence, I was maybe 12, 13 years old at that time. That's something that changes your perspective.
Mhm.
That's something that changes the way you think and feel. And it's definitely the biggest reason why I chose healthcare and I'm where I am today.
How is your relationship with your family and your spiritual growth, your spiritual influences?
Mhm.
Who's the person who influenced you the most?
Right. So, present day, my nuclear family consists of my mom
Hmm.
and my younger brother. His name is Jeremy. And one very, very special little dog. He's a poodle named Bingo.
Okay.
Yes. That's my nuclear family in the present. And I feel like I'm very blessed to say that they're my best friends. I get along with them incredibly well. We are a incredible support system to each other. Uh, my mom is really the provider of our spiritual health, our mental health. My younger brother also provides physical health. He keeps us healthy, exercising, eating well. I am more in charge of the financial health, the logistic health. So we all definitely support each other. I'm very lucky to have them. Historically, the person who has provided and supported us in terms of our faith and our spiritual health was my dad.
Mhm.
But if you had noticed, I didn't mention him in my present day nuclear
Mhm.
health. I did lose my dad a few months ago to a cancer,
It was just a few months ago.
just a few months ago, almost a year.
Mhm.
I lost him to a cancer. And of course, that changed so many things. And I'm sure we'll get to that in a moment. But in terms of who provided and instilled and maintained
Mhm.
and supplemented so many verbs here, our most important area of health, which is the spiritual health, that was my dad. And I attribute everything to him.
Good. Losing a parent is something that it's got to be extremely painful. I don't know that because I still have both of my parents.
You know?
I'm very blessed for that. Do you want to share a little bit of how did you navigate through the grief of what you went through?
Absolutely. I think a lot of this is very dependent on the age of which you lose the parent. Whether you are someone who's completely independent, has their own family, children, or someone in my scenario who is 22 years old,
Hmm.
still living at home with the family, very dependent in many ways. Um, of course, losing him in the moment was absolutely brutal in the sense that his cancer, and I should mention this, his cancer was extremely aggressive and extremely fast. From diagnosis to death was just under 2 weeks. So very, very little time to even process what was
Yes.
going on,
Yes,
much
absolutely.
less make the adjustments, the conversations necessary, um, the arrangements. It was something so fast, and it definitely, the length of time that one has to prepare and adjust and make mental preparations influences everything. In my case, I didn't have a lot of time. So just when we started having those initial discussions as to what the future should be, what adjustments we need to make for our plans, I lost him. And of course, he tried to give me as much guidance as he could. But if I could encapsulate everything in one word, it would be insecurity.
Mm.
Right now, I'm in a place of my life where I have my profession. I'm
Mhm.
relatively new into my profession, but I'm a professional. But in many other things, I am not developed or established at all. You know, my dad was my number one confidant.
Mhm.
He was my advisor, my counselor. He guided me through every decision, the big and the small. So, from one night to another, having lost my sense of direction
Yep.
in a sense, my advisor, my counselor, present day, and I still suffer this present day, I find it much more difficult, very difficult, to make big decisions, knowing that now it's me.
It's you.
It's
Yeah.
completely me. I don't have that go-to person anymore. And I went to him for everything, the big and the small. Even, what should I wear today? What should I choose on the menu to eat? And bigger things, choosing my career, choosing my future spouse.
Mhm.
Um, it's just been very difficult finding a way to navigate and make the right decision without feeling insecure that I am making the right decision.
Did you have any support group, and especially your church?
Mhm.
Did they support you? Do you have a support system?
It's a great question. The church, I've always been very fond of the church.
Mhm.
My church has an incredible community, a sense of love and and generosity. But I don't think you can truly appreciate those acts until you go through a major loss or a major disaster, a major event like this. I'd always gotten along well with the members of my church, thankfully. I know that's not always the case with everyone. But when I did lose my dad, since it was such a rapid thing, within a question of seconds, literally seconds, once the announcement was made by the pastor and in the church's WhatsApp group that he had passed, we were flooded with messages and calls offering resources, support, prayer, um, help in the home. So my father, he passed away on a Wednesday at noon. Within a few minutes, we had gotten a message from one of the members of the church saying, Villamil family, we have completely canceled all activities, events, and programs for this Friday afternoon. We're going to reserve that space for a memorial or a celebration of your dad. Tell us what you need, what you want, how you want it. It will be done.
Wow.
In less than 24 hours, an entire service was prepared completely for him, including food, pictures, special music, guest speakers, and we didn't do any of it. The church, everyone came
They
together, they
just
activated,
embraced you guys.
they embraced, they showed that true love, that unconditional support, and they made an incredible, unforgettable ceremony for my dad. And it's something I will treasure and be thankful for forever, my church community.
It's been almost a year,
Mhm.
and that is not a long time
Mhm.
to be able to process, especially a father that you were so close, like you're describing. How has it been since? Because at the beginning, everybody comes together and they try to help you. But after that, and has the church or friends,
Mhm.
or how have you been finding support in the ongoing?
Right. You know, I would like to answer this in two parts. First, I'd say that the biggest consequence I feel of his passing, the biggest thing that I struggle with personally would be loneliness. As I mentioned, he was my best friend, and I mean that at the very definition. I would come home from university and he would work from home. So he would be there in the living room, he'd be watching a soccer game. I'd immediately throw the backpack down, like in the movies, throw myself onto the couch, and we would watch football games together or a race. We were big Formula One fans. If it was the Olympics time of the year, then we would watch the Olympics. I mean, every second we could spend together sharing a common interest, we absolutely would. If there were a soccer game live in the city, I'd always invite him. I'd pay for him, or vice versa. He'd invite me and he'd pay for me, and we'd go. So, having grown accustomed to his presence and not just mundane things, but in my personal interests as well, the biggest challenge has been finding a way to adapt and let go of that loneliness when I do those activities.
And not have that person that you're used
Exactly.
to it.
For example, and this is something that I have stopped doing because of his loss. But first, after his passing, I tried to continue going to the soccer games by myself. But I would sit there alone, and I'd look, and I'd see families, fathers and sons together, and I would be sitting there, and it was just impossible to get over that. Or I'd come home from university, and instead of having a home to walk into where my dad was there cooking and watching the game, I now walk into a silent home, and I have to pull out all the ingredients, start cooking, and maybe even watch a game if I feel like I can. So the biggest obstacle has been the loneliness.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of how I feel that I have progressed, I think the biggest thing has been my open communication to my support group about my feelings. For example, I told my mother, which I love my mother, again, one of my best friends. I love her, love her, love her, love her. But she wasn't a football fan. She wasn't a sports fan, things like this. So
there were different things that you do with mom and dad.
Exactly. So when I communicated with her openly that, hey, I know this isn't a big interest of yours, but I just really feel really lonely. And this is something I would like to continue to do, but I don't have anyone to do it with. In that open communication, she agreed to come join me, and we've been to Atlanta, Charlotte, Fort Lauderdale to see many games, many races. After a few minutes, she falls asleep, of
You're
course.
making me feel bad now. Because when my husband wants me to watch soccer with him, I'm like, anything but soccer. I think I'm going to have to start watching soccer with him.
And again, with my little brother as well, going to the gym, things like that. With my church friend group, as I mentioned, I was a big traveler. I used to travel to places with my dad. And I just find it very difficult to travel alone. So now some of my friends and we travel to places together. Hopefully we can put together a San Diego trip here in the next few months. That's what we're talking and planning on. So things like that, finding ways to make small adjustments, involve people that already exist in my support group, but being open and communicating with them what my personal needs are. Making those small adjustments has really helped day by day, finding a new normal.
I like that you are proactive about it. It's probably from the Latin family, right?
Exactly.
we don't know how to be alone. We will make a way to have people around us. But I appreciate that you recognize, first of all, I'm feeling lonely, I'm missing my father. Because a lot of times we don't even know why we're sad. We don't even know why we're depressed. So the fact that you understand, wait, my father was a great company. Mom, would you help me out with this? I love that you're doing that. Now, you mentioned a few things like you were like the financial person. And you also mentioned that you switched jobs. So first, how is the new, I don't want to call it burden, but it's like the new task that has been given to you at such a young age. How stressful has this been? And also tell me a little bit about your new position. I think those are two separate questions.
Yeah, but we'll make it work.
Yes.
So without a doubt, let me get into the new work first.
Sure.
That's something I'm very, very passionate about. I love it. I currently work for a public health clinic for the county that I reside in. Public health encapsulates things like STDs, so that includes gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, trichomoniasis, and we also do birth control,
Mhm.
so pills, implants, things like this. Again, a very, very critically underserved area,
Mm.
and an opportunity that I was presented, and I had to take it. Prior to that, I worked in surgery. I was a circulating nurse for
Okay.
a major hospital. We were doing orthopedic surgery. We did a lot of spine surgery. Worked with a lot of surgeons, anesthesiologists. A very, very serious environment, very high stress environment. Um, two very different areas, but two critically underserved areas.
Yes.
You know,
And how did you cope with first a very high stress job,
Mhm.
then losing your dad, and then changing jobs?
Mhm.
How long has it been that you changed?
About 2 months now.
Okay,
Yeah.
about 2 months. So pretty much is like high stress job, losing your dad, and then a new job. How did you cope with all of that?
Well, you know, the most difficult thing is has been that it's been so many changes. As you mentioned earlier, taking on, let's call it the burden or the responsibility of the finances of
Mhm.
the home, as well as changing a job, starting from this and going here. It's something that is without a doubt very overwhelming. But I feel that having the beliefs that I have as a Christian, even though it is overwhelming, you can still have peace in knowing that as long as you do your honest part and you trust in the Lord, even if in the moment things look there's no solution, no way forwards, as we say in my family, the victory is certain. It's just waiting the time to get to that
We
victory,
already know the end.
Exactly. We know the end. It's just that present, that moment that's so frustrating and difficult. One of the big biblical figures that keeps me going and keeps my family going is Moses. Now, Moses, specifically, once he led the people out of Egypt and he was in the desert, one of the big decisions he had to make in that moment was what direction to go. They had led Egypt, and now where do we go? Moses had made the decision to go straight towards the sea, and many of his people criticized him for that. They didn't see any logic to it. They didn't see any reason to make that decision, and in many cases,
It was the hardest way to get there.
exactly,
Yeah.
there was nonsensical way.
Mhm.
And I think that, being my age with all these volatile and fluctuating things, I feel that I can relate to him in a sense that there's no clear sense of direction to go. But what I have tried to do personally, in terms of the financial, in terms of the professional, in terms of everything, is allow myself to be guided just as Moses allowed himself to be guided, even if in the moment that guidance led to what was seemingly a
The worst
random
place for
or
you
the
to
worst
go.
possible place or a place with no solution.
Mhm.
Then, Moses, it took a lot of guts for him to go straight to the sea with all the criticism, knowing that his decision would not only affect him, but thousands of innocent people, children, elderly people. Similar to now, I am financially responsible for my mom, my younger brother. Um, Obviously, not thousands of people, but people that are very important to me.
At a 22,
Mhm.
it's a lot.
Yeah, it has been, and I'm still making those decisions. I'm still making those adjustments. One of those adjustments was making the job to this clinic,
Mhm.
where we can be a little more financially secure. But present day, I'm still crossing the desert.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find the cloud that the Lord has sent for me, and I'm trying to do my best to follow it regardless of where it's leading me. And that's the most difficult thing when you know that you have a mom and a younger brother dependent on you, and you're walking straight to a sea. It's very easy to second guess yourself, especially when you don't have your counselor and your advisor and your best friend that you normally get guidance from, you know. But I know how Moses' story ended. I know that the Lord opened the sea and split it wide. I am on my way to the sea now. In many areas, I'm making my way to the sea. I'm just really hoping that the Lord will also, and I have faith that He will.
He
But
will.
I know,
We don't know
yeah,
exactly what it is,
yeah.
but he
I'm just
will.
hoping that sea will split open wide and we can make it through to the promised land.
How did your Christian values that you have mentioned several times, but how did they guided you to make the decision
Mhm.
to choose this new job
Mhm.
And also, what are the challenges because of your values?
So first things first, when you are in a position where you need to look for a solution, the first thing is to have a clear head, a clear mind, a clear sense of thinking. And I don't think it would be possible, or at least it would be extremely difficult to be in a frame of mind where you can think clearly without the peace and the hope that the Lord brings us.
Yes.
And his promise that we will be reunited, that there will always be a victory, that everything will be fine in the end. That was fundamental for me to be able to make these decisions with a clear head in the first place. So I attribute everything to the peace and the hope that the Lord brings. It's impossible to move forwards without that.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the position I landed in professionally, aside from the financial aspect, which was a big part of me making the move, I got to thinking, because this is something that just popped out of nowhere. I was in Google Flights looking for a flight to see if I can maybe go on a vacation, when I saw a little tab and it was job opportunities, and it came up. I saw it. And I got to thinking, in the hospital and surgery at that time, we worked with patients who needed help, but these tend to be financially better off patients. Most of them are elective voluntary procedures. We did a lot of plastic surgery as well. So that tells you a little bit of the demographic we worked with. But the demographic that you work with in an STD and a birth control setting is a very, very completely demographic. Many times these are young adolescents who are just completely lost, or these are older people who just struggle to make the right decisions throughout the course of their life. So after a lot of consideration, I felt that as a nurse, you can make an impact anywhere. But as a Christian, this is a demographic that was severely, severely forgotten about, as a demographic that needed a lot of attention urgently. And I hoped, in making that decision, that I would be able to help at least someone, one person, adolescents, because I have many of my friends who in their adolescence made bad decisions and are paying the consequences of those today. And those people are very near and dear to my heart. So in knowing that maybe I could guide at least one good person, one innocent person to make one right decision, that was more than enough to motivate me.
And these are people that they made a mistake. They got a disease.
Yeah.
How many of them feel like this is my punishment?
Everyone. Yeah, everyone.
And a lot of people will reject them because they have that disease, because they made that mistake. So there are those people that it become like rejected. So having somebody that cares for them and can talk about God to them, it doesn't matter the condition they're in. This is, wow, I had not stopped to think about that because I'm not in healthcare. So you just don't think the differences, But now that you're saying, I was like, wow, this is absolutely needed. This is incredible. What would you say, an advice, a young person that is listening to you right now, what advice do you have for this young person that is going through grief, that is going through the pressures of a stressful work or losing somebody? What would you say to this person?
I think that there's two critical points that need to be taken away. The first point is that, and this is going to sound very cliche, but you have to trust in the Lord. You absolutely have to trust in the Lord. And as difficult as it may be to do that at times, there's historical evidence that shows that the Lord has acted. He does act and he will act in not just your life, but in everyone's life. The Lord is very present. He's very obvious if you look in the right ways. So whether it's a question of doubt as to whether the Lord would or is willing to act in your life, young person, there's no question. It's a promise.
Yes.
And God is perfect. He is everywhere. He is everything. So don't think that he will not consider your situation. Don't think that he doesn't care about you. He is there. He's ready to go. It's taking that step of trusting in him, allowing him to guide you, allowing him to take care of you and provide for you, just as he took care of Moses, guided Moses, provided for Moses, just as he does for so many other people. He can and will do it for you. The other point that I think is very, very important in terms of loss and grief is to be very, very open about that. Again, the first step to fixing a problem is acknowledging that there's a problem.
There's a problem.
And that's the hardest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It sometimes you as humans can be stubborn or a little ignorant or just refuse out of fear, you know? But if you want to solve a problem, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge it. If you feel that you're lonely, talk to your support system. Let them know how you're feeling. Let them know how you wish that they can help you. If you're feeling lost, talk to your support system. Ask for guidance, ask for advice, ask for testimonies and examples and any kind of way to help you find that guidance that you need. If you feel insecure, aside from reading the Bible, which is full of so many beautiful and peace-bringing promises, you know, think about how the Lord has acted in your life in the past. Think about how the Lord has acted in the people that you know in their lives. Think about how he's acted for people historically. And I can tell you, if you don't know anyone else, if you don't know of any family member, if you can't think of anyone that can tell you that the Lord has provided for them, I can tell you myself, 1 year out, that the Lord has been so
He's
unbelievably
going to give
good
us
to me.
his Instagram and then we
Yes,
can
exactly right. And I'd like to say this one last thing, and this shocks so many people when I tell them this because it makes no sense to them in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, when I lost my dad, was the best year of my entire life.
Wow.
And let me elaborate on why I say that. Because it
Please.
sounds very cruel in the
Please
moment. Right?
elaborate.
I swear I'm not cruel. Yes, I lost my dad. And all the consequences of that, I still suffer. But the reason I say it was the best year of my life is because when I lost him, I gained the Lord. When I lost my dad, I was able to see so clearly, so evidently, so directly, so obviously how the Lord was acting in my life, how the Lord cared for me, how the Lord provided for my family. So many small things, so many massive things. When my dad was in hospice, the nurse who took care of him in his final days was a Colombian male who had moved from Colombia, took care of him, spoke to him in my dad's native language. When we went to probate court to finally start all the legal adjustments we needed to make, one of my high school best friends was the advisor there in probate court, and he put us in the top of the priority list. He took care of us, explained everything step by step. The church and how they were so generous. I mean, so many small and big things. We were in one of the biggest things, and this is more about financial security here, is that my dad was able to work and save enough money to pay off the house and pay off all of our debt just 2 or 3 months before he passed away.
Wow.
So he was in flawless health. All the debt was paid. As soon as that last bill was paid, his health started to deteriorate and he passed away a few weeks afterwards.
Wow.
But the simple fact of having debt and not having that changes so many things.
It sure does.
So I have no doubt in my mind. In other words, I have seen the Lord, not with my own eyes, it's impossible, but through his actions, through his blessings, through the way he's provided for us, through the support that he has sent us, through all the blessings. I saw the Lord last year. And yes, I had to lose my dad in order to see him. But let me say this to you, young person. When you see the Lord and you can feel him and you can observe him and you know for certainty he cares about you and he is acting in your life, there's nothing better than that. It's ecstasy. It is something that you grab onto and you never, ever want to let go. You cling onto him for life. And that's why I say it was the best year of my life. Because last year, at the cost of losing my dad, I gained, I met, and I saw the Lord. And that's something I will take with me forever, will motivate me forever, and hopefully can inspire many other young people.
And your belief in what happens, the doctrine that you believe of what happens after somebody dies, the return of Christ, has that affected why you feel the way that you feel in relation to your father?
You know, I tell my friends this all the time. After losing my dad, my faith, in a sense, was no longer voluntary. To me personally, my faith was an obligation. It's something I needed. I need God to be real. I know he's real, but I'm going to say that way. I need God to be real.
You made it more tangible.
I need God to fulfill his promise. I need God to keep his word about reuniting everyone, because I miss my dad.
Yes.
I miss my dad. I am craving to be able to hug him again, tell him everything I've done with my life, tell him who my future wife is going to be, things that he missed out on. But I need the Lord. I need my faith in order to get to that point.
Got it.
The last thing my dad said to me in his bed, and I'll keep this with me forever, he said, Johnny, I need to see you in heaven. I want to be with you again. Do what you got to do. I know you will. Just keep it up, and then I'll see you again. A few minutes after, he did pass away.
Wow.
But to me, this is more than just going to a building on Sabbath. To me, this is more than just singing hymns. This is more than saying very nice sounding words. To me, this is life or death.
Yes.
Faith is life or death. And I need this. I need to see my dad again. I need the Lord. I need his love. I need his forgiveness for my sins. I need this. I need the Lord. That's all thanks to the loss of my dad. Kind of set me in that direction, set me exactly where I need to be.
Johnny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
Hearing from a young person that went through so much so quickly. You could have gone in so many different directions. And you just grabbed onto the Lord.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming here and
Yes.
giving us this testimony. This
Absolutely.
is absolutely incredible.
Thank you so much for having me.
thank you.
This is great. Loved this. This is great. So have me back.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to work together again.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.